if we're not able to open markets to the United States, we would have to destroy a portion of their potatoes, and it would be very unfortunate, and nobody wants that.
Over 140,000 tons of Canadian potatoes just disappeared from American shelves in 4 months. No warning, no fight, just gone. Why? Because on April 2nd, Washington hit them with a 35% tariff. Now a $22 bag costs $30. A plate of fries that used to be $3.50, it's $5.25. And while Americans pay more for soggy fries, Canada didn't argue. They just left and signed a $1.6 billion trade deal with Asia. No tweets, no threats, just gone. A quiet echo of the last time American trade policy was driven more by impulse than diplomacy. Was this just a trade dispute? Or the quiet collapse of one of the most stable partnerships in North American agriculture? When a potato says, "No thanks," what does that say about us? And why does it feel like the return of a familiar kind of chaos? The kind that tanked soybean exports, rattled alleys, and sparked farmer protests across the Midwest just a few years ago? This video is for educational and social commentary purposes. We don't support or oppose any trade policy. We're just asking, what happens when trust gets taxed? And what happens when the same playbook that once triggered a global tariff tit-for-tat gets dusted off and reused? Until recently, Canada exported over 350,000 metric tons of potatoes to the U.S. each year, enough to feed 17 million households, especially in northern states, where winter lasts longer than campaign season. This was more than trade, it was ritual. Minnesota diners ran on PEI potatoes, the way Congress runs on lobbyist coffee. But then came April 2025. The U.S. slapped a 35% tariff on Canadian potatoes. No pressers, no bilateral talks, just a wall of taxes. A page pulled straight from the Trump-era trade manual, unilateral, abrupt, and strategically confusing. And just like that, fries changed. The price of a $3.50 serving jumped to $5.25. A $32,000 shipment of fries now carries $11,200 in extra taxes. That's a 35% hit. Not on luxury handbags, but on food Americans eat more than broccoli and logic combined. Restaurants swapped PEI potatoes for cheaper domestic ones. They don't fry the same. Customers complained, limp texture, uneven color, strange chemical aftertaste that screams freedom fries. A diner regular in Eau Claire, Wisconsin said, "I paid $5 for fries that tasted like wet cardboard. I used to come here twice a week. Now I bring my lunch." Franchise owners didn't choose to switch. Canadian trucks just stopped showing up. And their customers noticed and stopped coming. Mom and pop diners shrank portions. Margins didn't shrink. They vanished. It's a familiar pattern. Main Street pays for decisions made by people who think tariffs are TV ratings. But Canada didn't retaliate. They restructured. Processors scaled back exports. Farms retooled. Potatoes were redirected to food banks, domestic co-ops, and retail chains. Meanwhile, Ottawa looked east. A $1.6 billion agri-trade deal was signed with Japan, South Korea, and Indonesia. Thailand is now Canada's top non-US buyer. Caribbean nations like Trinidad and Panama each bought more than $13 million in Canadian spuds. This wasn't about revenge. It was about resilience. In Charlottetown, a new processing line added 45 jobs and started using ugly potatoes that used to go to livestock. Because Canada learned something. If your biggest customer throws a fit every election cycle, you're not in business. You're in hostage negotiations. And that lesson wasn't born in 2025. It started with steel, soybeans, and solar panels under Trump. The pivot sounds good, But shipping to Asia is 20 to 35% more expensive than trucking to Buffalo. South Korea still hasn't cleared fresh Canadian potatoes due to quarantine rules. And small farms? They're stuck waiting for the boat that sails once a month. Without a direct buyer, they have no control over where or when their harvest goes. Canada is moving on, but it's not easy. The economic hangover of another America First policy doesn't just stay in America, it ripples outward unpredictably. No one declared a trade war, no speeches, just tariffs and retreat. Canadian potato exports to the U.S. are down 41.7%. U.S. potato imports fell 19%. Why? Because trust doesn't always break with shouting. Sometimes it just fades between empty warehouses, deals signed somewhere else, and fries that don't taste the way they used to. Maybe Canada didn't slam the door. Maybe they just stopped knocking. Maybe they remember what happened the last time America made itself unpredictable and decided not to wait for the sequel. So what do you think? Will Canada ever return to the table? Or was this the quietest breakup in North American trade history? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe, because next time someone taxes trust and calls it strategy, you'll want to know. Especially if we've seen this movie before.